welcome to Gaggia TV. What we're doing today is we're looking at the test modes for the Naviglio machine. This is our entry-level automatic bean-to-cup machine, and what we're going to be looking at is the diagnostic test procedure that you can go through to look at the individual components within the machine. As with all the test modes for all of the machines, what we're going to do is we're going to run each individual part of the machine separately, which can help you diagnose any problems that you might be having, but also you can look at you can use it to troubleshoot some problems that you might be occurring as well. To get to the test mode in the Naviglio machine, what you have to do is you have to hold with two fingers on the front the two coffee buttons. So that's the espresso and the espresso lungo button. Hold those down at the same time and then turn the machine on at the back. In some models you will do this by simply plugging it in, and on some models you have the switch at the back. You know you've reached the test mode if you kind of get this odd rainbow chasing going on. All of the lights will flicker in sequence and then all of them will light up at the same time. What we're going to do is we're going to move through the individual layers of the test mode, which will test each individual part. To get from one level of the test mode to the next one, what you do is you push the standby button. So we're going to push it to go to the first level of the test mode. This first level of the test mode tests the keyboard. Now, unlike other Gaggia machines, this doesn't have a screen to tell you what's going on. So what we've got to do is we've got to use the lights on all of the buttons and the LEDs at the top here to gain knowledge about what's happening inside the machine. And on the keyboard mode, which is the first level of the test mode, and you know this because only one light is on at the top of the Naviglio machine here. On the keyboard mode, we're going to test all of the individual keys. So the very first thing you have to do is you have to push the hot water button. And when you push it, it should light up the next button to press. So I've pushed the hot water button, and now the espresso button is lit up. If I push the espresso button, the espresso lungo button is lit up. If I push that, it lights up the steam button, and then it lights up the calc clean button, and then finally we go back to the beginning. And what this is doing is it's verifying that all the keys on the machine are working. You're going to cycle through all of them just to check that all of them are working. We already know that the standby button's working because you used that to cycle through the different levels of the test mode there. If there's something wrong with your keys, it doesn't happen very often, but if there is something wrong, you can't fix that on your own. So give us a call. The number is down in the description for any faults that you have, but the keys you can't really do on your own. But like I say, it doesn't go wrong very often. So once you've cycled through all of them, we're going to go to the next level of the test mode by pushing the standby button. This next level of the test mode is actually testing the input from your aroma strength dial at the front here. When it's set to 1, you should see that only one of these buttons is lit up, just the hot water button. When you set it to 2, you should see that 2 of them are lit up, hot water and espresso. And when you set it to 3, you get hot water, espresso and espresso lungo. And just like the keyboard inputs here, all we're doing is testing that the knob on the front here works. We're going to move now to the next level of the test mode by pushing the standby button. So we're now going to go to the third level of the test mode, and what this is going to do is it's going to test the onboard sensors. There's nothing to do with the buttons here. You can push those and nothing will happen. Likewise with the aroma strength selector, because what we're testing is the onboard sensors, which detect whether or not there's water, whether or not the dump box is present or not, if the door is open and the brew unit is in. The very first one to test is the water sensor. And you do that by taking out the water tank, and you should see that the hot water button goes green. It turns on. If that doesn't happen, that means that there's some fault with the water sensor. The most common problem there is that there's water inside here somewhere. If you take a dry cloth and you dry that out, that should solve your problem. We're going to put that back in, and the sensor should turn off. Then we're going to test the dump box. When we take the dump box out, we're actually going to trip 2 sensors. We're going to trip the door one and the dump box. So we take that out, and the dump box sensor is the one with steam, and the door sensor is the one with espresso lungo on the switch. So in order to test them fully, what you do is you take the dump box out, verify that both of those turn on, open the door, and put the dump box back in, and what you should see is that now the steam sensor, the dump box sensor, has turned off. If you close the door, that sensor turns off as well, so you should now have no lights present. The final one we're going to test is the brew unit present sensor. So we're going to take the brew unit out of the machine, trip the brew unit present sensor, and what that will do is it will turn on the light on the espresso button. So we're going to take the brew unit out of the Naviglio machine here. Remember to push that to take the brew unit out. Put everything back, including the little grey piece of plastic. Dump box in. Door closed. properly, like so, and we can now see that the brew unit present sensor has been tripped because, firstly, we're holding the brew unit, and secondly, the espresso button is lit. So what we're going to do is put everything back, just to verify that we're all okay. Put the brew unit back. In goes the grey piece of plastic, dump box, close the door, and everything should be now unlit. No buttons lit if you've successfully completed that. We're now going to push standby to get to the 4th level of the test mode. So we're now going to go into the 4th level of the test mode, and what this does is it tests the electrovalve, which is the device that either pumps water through the espresso nozzles just here or the steam arm. We're going to test the pump, and we're going to test the full range of motion of the brew unit from the home position to the work position. We have to do these things in a particular order, and it can get a little bit tricky because, as I've mentioned previously, the Naviglio doesn't have a screen, so your only clues as to what's going on inside the machine are from the lights. So we have to do these things in a particular order. The very first one that we're going to do is we're going to test the range of motion of the brew unit. Now, if you've had problems with your brew unit, that can be a couple of things. It could be that there's an obstruction inside, though like I say, you've just taken it out, so you should have seen that earlier. Or it might be that you haven't cleaned it properly, or it might need lubrication. Both of those things are really easy to do. If you need to clean your brew unit, you can do that in warm soapy water, nothing harsher than warm soapy water, or you can lubricate your brew unit using the lubricant that's provided with the machine. The very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check whether or not the brew unit can go all the way to the home position, and you do that by holding down the steam button. And when you hold down the steam button, you should hear the brew unit start to move inside the machine, and when it stops moving to tell you that it's in the home position, the steam button stays lit solid green. Once you've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to check that it can move all the way to the work position, which is all the way forwards, by holding down the espresso lungo button here. And again, you'll hear it moving in the machine. And when it's finished, you'll get a solid green espresso lungo button. If you overextend the brew unit, that means that it's gone too far forwards, which does occasionally happen, quite rarely, but occasionally, then the calc clean button will start to flash orange. That's not a disaster, nothing bad has happened, you've just moved it too far forwards, that sometimes happens. What you do then in that case is you move it backwards using the steam button slightly, you let go, and then you move it back into the work position by holding down espresso lungo. And when it's a solid green, everything's all right. Now that we've got the brew unit in the work position, what we can do is we can check the electrovalve and the pump. When the electrovalve is in the espresso position, that means that the hot water button will be off. If we want to change it to the steam position to get hot water, you can turn the hot water button on and it will stay solid green. Sometimes a little jet of water comes out of the steam arm, as you might have just seen there. And what that means is that water is ready to come out of the steam arm. If we now push the espresso button or hold it down, the pump will run and you'll get water out of your steam arm almost instantly. It might take 5 seconds or so, but no more. If you've waited a long time and the pump's been running and no water comes out of your steam arm, do double check that the the hot water button is lit. But if there is a blockage within your steam arm, that's not really the kind of things you can fix at home. So do give us a call. Like I say, the number is down in the description there. Finally, we're going to test the espresso nozzles by moving the electrovalve to off by pushing the hot water button. So now the hot water button should be off. And we're going to hold down the espresso button here, and hot water will come out of the front of the machine, and you'll see it running into the jug at the front here. If you let go, it should stop. If you've got a problem with that, if there's a blockage in the front of your espresso machine, or you've been getting really slow coffee or very little is coming out, you can degrease the machine, which we'll cover in a later video, or you can really gently take some pipe cleaners, as with all of our machines, and gently try and coax out of the front the coffee oils that have built up inside the espresso nozzles here. It does sometimes take 10 seconds or so for the water to get from the pump all the way into the jug, because the espresso lines are quite thin and they are quite long, but it shouldn't take longer than that. If that's a problem, do try clean out the front of the espresso unit here, but try and keep it clean by regularly degreasing your machine. With all that tested, we're now going to move to the final stage of the test mode by pushing the standby button. The final stage of the test mode here is with all 5 lights lit, and what this is going to do is it's going to test the heater and the grinder. The very first thing to do is to test the thermostat for the machine. You test the thermostat by pushing the hot water button, and if it flashes green and nothing else happens, that means that the thermostat is working fine. If the calc clean button starts to flash orange or occasionally red, that means that your NTC thermostat is not working properly, and you should give us a call. That's not the kind of thing you can fix at home. As I said, the number is down in the description. Having done that, what we're now going to test is the actual heater itself, and you test the heater itself by holding down the espresso button, and you want to count to 5, 3, 4, 5, and then let go. Now there's no, unlike other Gaggia machines, there's no indication as to whether or not the heater has worked. You have to go and verify that for yourself. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to move back to the 4th level of the test mode by pushing the standby button 1, 2, 3, 4 lights at the top here. And then we're going to turn the electrovalve on, and then we're going to hold down the pump, and you have to put your finger in the way to verify that hot water is coming out. And it is indeed, so be a bit careful there, that warm water will come out of the steam arm, and you've just heated that up yourself so you know everything's okay. You then move back to the 5th level of the test mode, so make sure you've got all 5 lights lit up here. We've checked that the heater is working, we've checked that the thermostat is working. The final thing we've got to do is check whether the grinder is working. There are 2 settings for the grinder on the Naviglio. There's the long setting and the short setting. You activate the long setting by pushing the steam button, so when you push that, the grinder will go off, like so. It's okay if the level of the grinder goes up and down throughout the course of the grinding. That's all right. It's testing the various settings that the grinder can be placed at. The final setting we want to test is the short grinder setting, and you do that by pushing the espresso lungo button just here. And that should grind for less time, as we've just seen there. And then everything is all tested. The final thing to do is to move the brew unit back to the home position, because that's where the machine is expecting the brew unit to be when you turn it on. So we're going to go back to the 4th level of the test mode. We're going to hold down steam, and that moves the brew unit all the way back to the home position, and we're all good to go. If you turn the machine off at the back now, and make sure that all the capacitance inside the machine is gone, so all the lights at the front are off, and then turn it back on, when you push standby, what you should see is that everything turns on as normal, and you'll be ready to make yourself some coffee. That's the run through of the test mode for the Naviglio. If you have any questions or comments, please do that in the box down below. But thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, follow us on social media, and enjoy your coffee.